Ben, after reading your story that you put on your Cookies Hoops Patreon, I gotta ask you the hard-hitting question, Ben. Who is the greatest AND1 mixtape player of all time?
I mean, it's gotta be Skip, right? I mean, he was the one who created the phenomenon. He was the one who was referenced the most times by Prodigy. You know, the real criteria that matters.
And he made it, right?
A success story, yeah.
And that's the main thing. He was the one who went to the NBA and had whatever it was, a 10-year career, played on a finals team, and apparently his son is good, from what Instagram algorithm tells me.
The modern mixtape has let us know that. Which is weird, right? It's full circle that you learned about. Most people learned about Ray Paul Alston from the AND1 mixtapes, and then here we are, 25 years or so odd years later. His progeny is being learned about in the modern version of what that is, which is weird. It's weird that they kept the name mixtape. That the internet people haven't come up with their own term for it, because it has similarities, and at the same time it doesn't. Because when I think about the AND1 mixtape, for me it was seeing a lot of different people, and I feel like the modern mixtape is it's siloed, right? You're watching one person over and over again, and so I don't know where I'm going. I'm rambling because this is you wrote about something that's near and dear to my heart, Ben. So it transported me back, and it was incredibly well written, but it also evoked crazy nostalgia about this era of basketball where even though the internet was here and obviously things were being recorded more easily, there was still this feeling of discovery, right? You got that tape, and for those who don't know, I think the first two volumes, you got it for free by trying on a pair of shoes. You didn't have to buy the shoes.
Yep.
You just had to go to a Foot Action and try on a pair of ones, and that's how you got the tape. And so they got all this traffic of people who were coming in, not buying anything, but getting the tapes, and that's where they got the idea, oh shit, we could sell this. And the anticipation of grabbing that tape and putting it in your VCR, and then, oh shit, who's this guy? I remember the first time we saw Hot Sauce. Oh, they got guys like this from Atlanta, and his name is Hot Sauce. It's a white guy. They call him the Professor, and it's just that feeling of discovery that I don't know people have nowadays.
Well, I like the mention you had of why it was called a mixtape, and it was very literal. They took a rap mixtape and just put it behind basketball. You're right, the name should have changed, but it made sense at the time because it was mixed by DJs. It had unreleased records. It was no different from a DJ Clue mixtape. It just had highlights of streetball games with, of course, Skip as the main subject, but then as it evolved, the different characters who came into that extended universe.
Do we feel like we have to do a primer for the audience? I feel like our audience is in our generation enough that we don't have to say what the AND1 mixtape and the tour.
I think you got to, man.
All right. So Ben Detrick, author of Joy of Basketball, co-host of Cookies Hoops, and also you can see his work at the New York Times and The Ringer. I think our audience knows Ben Detrick also from the Bryan Colangelo feature and breaking news story that you did, I think in 2018. But this one came across my Twitter a few days ago, and I'm so glad you went deep into the AND1 culture and today's culture. I think it was interesting how you were able to point out the backdrop of this meetup to watch AND1 mixtape, VHS tapes, grainy videos, and Bushwick, and this underground revival of the AND1 mixtapes and what it meant to grow up as a kid. I was born in 86, so in 99, 2000, this is my getting into high school. How big this was to go over to your buddy's house and just watch AND1 mixtapes and then go out in the backyard and try all the moves. And to use this little vignette, this little scene that you were at recently against the backdrop of how sterile the NBA feels in this culture, the basketball and the NBA side. I loved that there was this kind of like dichotomy at work where I think people are really craving the AND1 mixtape without actually realizing it until they read this story.
Yeah, what I noticed also was that people who were too young to experience it at the time were also excited about it. Some of the people who were there were clearly, small children when this scene was erupting. And we're like, hey, are there still places I can watch streetball? Like, can I go to a park? Can I go to, Dykeman? Can I see some streetball? Is this possible? And even the guy who told me about it was one of the younger guys who plays ball with us. And he's probably like 30 years old. And he's like, hey, it should be on your radar. This sounds so cool. So I think there is this sort of archival interest that goes along with obviously piquing the nostalgia for people who see this element of basketball as being very different from the game today.
Ben, the crux of your article is that, forgive me for paraphrasing, it's almost like basketball's lost its soul. Right? There was a time where, I remember growing up before the AND1 mixtapes, they had these NBA Superstar Volume 1 and Volume 2, these NBA Entertainment produced tapes that were essentially mixtapes, but the music wasn't as cool and it was obviously a lot more professionally produced in terms of the footage used from games. But I remember one of those tapes, they talk about, basketball and jazz are the two art forms that have the closest because there's structure, but there's also improvisation. And reading your thing, your piece, it struck me. I hadn't really thought about it. It's like basketball's losing a lot of that improvisation, a lot of that jazz, and it's turned into sheet music where everyone's just kind of performing. And you kind of juxtapose it against the Indiana Pacers. What was it about the 25 finals and the Pacers that made you say, wait a second, jazz ain't dead yet?
Well, I felt like as I said in the article, the sort of crank opinion was like here's what's happening to basketball. In the future, it's going to be swagless. It's going to be rich kids. It's going to be nepo babies. It's going to be math ball. And look, I'm not an arbiter of the soulfulness of basketball. I like the game. I love it. I'm saying it's different now versus making a judgment call on it. I'm just saying it's different. Things have changed. But this was kind of the warning that, man, this sport's going in this direction. They don't want these outfits. They don't want this. They don't want that. And then you see the Pacers and you're like, well, shit, maybe those guys were right. This is kind of the embodiment of it. And also the Pacers were a fun team. It does but the critique of where the game was heading, the Pacers did inhabit a bit of that idea, I thought.
They're nasty. Like the way they play defense 94 feet and just get up in your face. I think people watch the Pacers and be like, oh, that kind of reminds me of the basketball that I grew up with, is like physical. Like Nembhard is not a household name. Nesmith is not a household name. But the ability to take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what was it? What was that? That story that we did, it was on Luka Doncic, where they were like the high flying dunks of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I was like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't known for high flying dunks at all. It just seemed like Shai doesn't have this iconic move, and yet he's the MVP. And I remember talking about this, I think, with Ethan Strauss, where it was like, even the best player in the world, Jokic, we don't have like signature moves in the same way that we did. And then I got to thinking, AND1 created like a whole culture of signature moves, and I can't think of one for Shai other than like what people would say is just grifting for fouls, Yeah,
you could be charitable and say it's some of his like up fake, step through, step back. His footwork is immaculate, and some of that leads to foul shots. But I mean, if I'm going to like give him a signature move, it's definitely like baseline stutter step, up fake stuff.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, the Tom Chambers up fake dunk from video games back in the day.
Can you put me real quick? Can you put me in that place where you watch the AND1 mixtapes? Like, can you give us a scene of what that was like?
So it was a small storefront in Bushwick, next door to, I think, like a Latino church. There was a couple of streets closed down for block parties, and it was an indie video place. I think they do screenings for movies in there. So there was these thick plastic sheets coming down, like a car wash that you kind of ford your way through to get in the back. So it was like extremely warm. It was very warm and sweaty, and there was a few guys back there, having a couple beers, and projectors are hot. If you've been around them, they're pumping hot air out. So there's 2 projectors going that was adding to the sort of general tropicality of the environment. But they're playing I think it was a So Def streetball mixtape on 2 projectors, and then smaller screens with maybe like AND1 Volume 2 or 3 kind of off of VCRs. And what I liked was that there was a real appreciation of the craft. And I spoke with a guy, Sage. He was the one who put it together. And he was saying how he thought that the OG streetball directors weren't getting the artistic acclaim that guys like Spike Jonze or Bill Strobeck get in the skating world, that basketball had been pushed aside, and maybe because they didn't have their names on it. They were associated with like larger brands versus a singular filmmaker. But he was like, this is a piece of filmmaking, whether it's indie, found footage, however you want to characterize it, like as a genre that is a slice of life. It's New York City, it's subculture. And I just listened to him. I was like, yeah, you are right. This is true.
Yeah, and that part you mentioned, the guy who's the architect behind it, Set Free Richardson, who's a Philly guy, but I think most people think he's from New York just because of the AND1 stuff. But yeah, Set Free was I think he was not a marketing intern. He wasn't high on the totem pole when he came with this idea. And AND1 at that point was more known for their T-shirts, which you had a couple of the images, but that was from like 1993, 94 to the release of that first mixtape, the Skip tape. If you said AND1, the immediate response or top of the head kind of instant reaction would be, "Oh, call me the bus driver because I'm taking you to school," and I like those shirts with the faceless guy. And then it was Set who kind of made it, Set Free who made it like transition from an apparel company to like a cultural purveyor. And he's around. I've done podcasts with him. He does stuff here and there. But you like you said, nowhere near the credit and the acclaim that he probably should have gotten for inventing something that, like we said, its descendants now live out on the internet.
Yeah, those images that we had with our article, those were done by Andrew Kuo, who's my creative partner on all the cookie stuff, co-author of Joy of Basketball. So he made those obviously referencing the original shirts that you're talking about. And when it comes to Set Free, my understanding of the history was that the Rafer Alston tapes were just kind of sitting around the office and they didn't know what to do with them. And he looked at it and had this idea and said we should add music, and basically turned it into a rap mixtape that has streetball on it. And yeah, the one thing that did strike me that's very different from today was how holistic it is. There's music, there's style, there's the crowd, there's an environment, there's the game itself. And you're like, this is just a universe. It's intoxicating.
Do you think that this can happen again in different form? But do you think this kind of underground streetball can exist in the same way at all?
I'm skeptical. There was one thing, when you said come on this pod and chat, and there was one thing that I was kind of stuck in my brain, was that you have basketball as a sport, how guys play on the floor, and faster, stronger, the game gets more complicated. There's more demands on the athletes, etc. And people can argue and say, no one was as strong as this guy from the 70s, but I'm not really intrigued by that one. I'm like, this is a gradual upward slope of the game itself. Mm-hmm. The culture doesn't operate on that same axis, though. It's not, the culture goes like this, right? It's up and down. So if someone says the game is the best today that it's ever been, they're going to be right in 10 years. They're going to be right in 20 years. Whenever someone says that, they're right. But culture doesn't follow that same transition. Culture rises and falls. So to say that we're going to get a moment like that of the early 2000s, it's just unlikely that you would get that. But what's ironic is that the game on the floor of the NBA might have been its worst at that exact moment.
I was just thinking the same thing.
No, 79, 74 in double overtime doesn't intrigue you? I get in that argument all the time where people are like, I missed the 2000s. I'm like, no, you don't. I promise you don't. You don't remember what Spurs Pistons was like. It was a hotly contested finals, but it was boring. It was so boring.
But I mean, isn't that kind of David Stern's legacy on some level, is that he was trying to stamp out the kind of culture of AND1, and yet I think we were all kind of hungry for that.
But so Ben brings up this great point, culture being cyclical, right? And if you think about like the NBA of the 70s and 80s, the drug culture, and it's kind of like freewheeling and stuff. And then David Stern comes and says, we got to clean this shit up. And then the 90s, it becomes very corporate, like this is how we do things, and everyone got to be like Michael Jordan, and Republicans buy sneakers too. And what ends up happening is this counterculture of the late 90s of embodied by no one better than Allen Iverson is like, sure, I'm not Michael Jordan. I don't want to, like, I'm not going to dress like this. I'm going to wear my hair like this, and I'm going to play like this. And that kind of comes up and then gets stamped out almost immediately on the NBA level, and it finds this lane of flourish in street ball, and this is with the explosion of media and just the availability of inventory to fill. And so what I think about your question, Tom, could it happen again? The problem, I'm of two minds. On the one hand, I say, well, absolutely, because like we just said, it's kind of veered back to everyone's very brand conscious and how can I do this? And so it kind of is hungering for that raw energy of that. On the other hand, has the technology put us in a place where we are so unextractable from everything as a viral moment, content creation moment, an opportunity for this, an opportunity for that? Even if there was some underground great pickup league where it's fun and you just come and watch, there's 8 billion people with cell phones and stuff, and it's almost like it's going to get ruined instantly, even if it does embody that spirit to begin with.
Yeah, there was a thought that I had about these two vectors, right? The game itself and the culture of the game. And what's fascinating about that era, early 2000s, is that the league itself, as a entertainment business, as a collection of 30 franchises, hated both of them, which is kind of amazing. They hated the product on the court. They weren't scoring. It was too much defense. It was iso ball. It was slow. And they hated the culture around it. I mean, look at the quotes from people that they're calling everybody thugs. They're telling them to pull their pants up. I mean, you read the stuff that like Phil Jackson or whoever said now, it just reads crazy as shit. But the NBA didn't like it. And they went and they made changes. And institutionally, they changed rules. They changed the game. They changed the wardrobes. They made the penalties were increased for fighting, for all this kind of stuff. And now 20 years later, you could say that the product and the culture in some ways reflect the decisions that they made. And it's successful. It's a global juggernaut. But then you have a generation of diehard fans from that era who don't like the current product.
You know what we are? We're Demolition Man. We're Dennis Leary living in the underneath it. We're eating rat and stuff, but it's like we're alive. Meanwhile, Sandra Bullock and the rest of them are enjoying this sanitized version of life. Ben, I want to highlight this one excerpt that you had here that really hit me because I feel the same way. Where you said, where is it? Here we go. No matter how highbrow or accurate, every critique of today's NBA is declinist. Cookies Hoops is admittedly siloed, but it doesn't feel like football, baseball, hockey, or tennis have equivalent grousing about how the sport sucks now. That camp warehouses folks who are mad about three-pointers, mad about hand checking, mad about gather steps, mad about flagrant fouls, mad about tunnel fits, mad about super teams, mad about flopping, mad about load management, mad about players being friends, mad about champions not spring enough bubbly, and mad about anything that could explain why a person might be less enraptured by professional hoops as an adult than they were as a teenager. I know you asked the question, but let me ask the question back to you. Why? Why are we the only sport that deals with this idea that everything sucks now and it was so much better back when we know empirically that it wasn't?
I think part of it is that what drew people to the game was the culture, and the culture has changed. And I think Jay Caspian Kane got into a little bit of that in his New Yorker piece, talking about sort of the shifting demographics of where basketball players are from. And even if some of that wasn't true, the idea at least was that it was the kid in the projects shooting around in, in the snow, and he made it to the NBA. That didn't happen as much as people probably wanted to believe it did. But now the kids' names when they're 15 years old because their dad was Carlos Boozer. So, it's shifted in some ways like that. But yeah, I think part of it is that the NBA has rewarded cynical critics a lot. I don't think people have to be company men, but even someone like Kendrick, he was just playing in the league, but he's out there cosplaying like he was in the 90s. Like, Kendrick, you were just in the league. You're part of the modern NBA. Why is he talking like he's Charles Oakley?
That's a good point, man.
He's one of those guys, along with Greg Monroe, where you find out his actual age and you're like, how is he not 53? Like Kendrick how old is Kendrick Perkins now? Is he 40? Is he?
Maybe he's 40.
He might have just turned 40. Like, Greg
Monroe in my head is 52, and yet he's 37 or something like that. Andre Drummond, another one of those. If we can create an all-star team of a lot younger than you think.
If you're a center in the mid 2000s, right, or the 2005 2010 stage, you pretty much feel like an old guy. Jaleel Okafor is 48.
Derek Favors is probably 35.
Yeah, yes, that's another great one. Ben, when you look at Anthony Edwards and the world that AND1 incorporated, the whole street ball aesthetic, it does feel like Anthony Edwards still is kind of like the face of what that used to be.
Right. He's everyone's solution to this. Okay, the face of the league can't be European. They can't be lame. They can't be this. They can't be big. They can't be that. And it's they can't be Canadian. Obviously, that doesn't work. You're it's got to be Anthony Edwards. We've limited our criteria, and Anthony Edwards is the solution. He fits exactly what Andrew and I in our book call the idea of Jordan as a concept. Kobe was Jordan, and people who loved Kobe didn't really love LeBron because he wasn't the Jordan figure. And Ant, you've seen their faces next to each other. It's maybe that's his dad. He is the Jordan figure that I think people crave.
Yeah. I already feel like we've already compromised him. He doesn't want any of that.
But that's what makes us want him more, right? Mm-hmm. Because if he embraced it and said, I will be it, then it's what? Never mind. It's we almost need to be rejected in order for someone to have that. It's funny, as we search for the next Michael Jordan, we're looking for the anti-Michael Jordan, because what we have now is a league full of brand image conscious businessmen, as opposed to Anthony Edwards gives us this whiff of remember how it used to be where people were characters and they give a shit, and by the way, part of that is the stuff that's technically not great, right? The baby mama scandals almost make him more enticing and intriguing. Even as we understand morally, that's awful, man. How could you not want to be involved in this child's life or whatever? But it's I like this guy. He's dangerous. It reminds me of, you know what it reminds me of? This is gonna sound so messed up. It reminds me of the character of Indiana Jones. Apparently, Steven Spielberg or George Lucas and one other guy was a producer. They were arguing a lot about how to make Indiana Jones a badass. And the reason why he in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Marion Ravenwood says to him, I was a child, I was in love, it was wrong and you knew it. And he said, you are old enough. The whole thing there is he messed with an underage girl. This guy's not a good guy, right? And that's kind of part of what builds the mystique of Indiana Jones into this hero. Is he's not like these cookie cutter clean shaven guys. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow, and he's sweating, and also he might have messed with his buddy's daughter when he shouldn't have. There's a part of that, obviously not the underage stuff aside, but like of Anthony Edwards' story, that's what makes him enticing. It's like, it's the taboo of it. Like, oh, wait a second, that's not a good thing to do, young man. But somehow it makes me like you more.
So you have high hopes for Josh Giddey. But I get what you mean, though. And in the article, I mentioned things that were negative, and I'm like, I'm not trying to exotify these things. I'm not trying to make them seem like they were good when it's like Steven Jackson outside of a strip club shooting guns off. Like, I'm not saying these are good things, but they were part of the culture and they happened. They were things that occurred that gave basketball an edge that it doesn't today. You know, I think there's just a lot of money involved now that wasn't back then. They were getting rich, but it's a different magnitude. Like, the sport is so much larger. You don't really get those same kind of stories. And again, this is definitely a bad thing where you find out a guy went totally broke. And that was kind of enough that happened frequently enough for them to make a documentary about basketball players who went broke after their career, despite having, you know, huge earnings. And I think the league has improved at making sure that happens a lot less. There's less bad investing. I think there's just more of an infrastructure there. I could be wrong, and maybe we'll see that happen down the line. But again, these things are not good, but the league was just edgier.
Who was the last of the Mohicans before Anthony Edwards? Truly star level, but had that edge or that dangerousness about him.
Ooh.
'Cause I'm trying to think, and I'm like, it can't be Gilbert Arenas. It had to be someone after Gilbert.
Is it? No, I was gonna say Artest was before then.
Yeah, Artest he's a product of that. He's literally the class of '99, so he's.
Sheed would be before then too.
Class of '95.
J.R. Smith.
Yes.
J.R. Smith, maybe 2005. Yeah.
Spree is a little too old for that too.
Spree, well, class of '93. Like, those are all guys that were. That's what the counterculture that the NBA tried to stamp out was those guys. I feel like
Draymond?
I feel like he's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Draymond and AND1 would be very interesting, though. I wonder what his nickname would be.
We go with a lot of different candidates there.
Different direction. But yeah, I mean, someone before Anthony Edwards would still have to be in the league now, and that person isn't readily. I think
Derrick Rose had some of that appeal, but it was a different kind of appeal. He was a street dude, but he was like from that area of Chicago and embodied it. But he wasn't like a loose cannon in that way that you're talking about some of those other guys.
Yeah.
What about Lou Williams?
Ooh. That's good.
Jamal Crawford?
No, not at all.
Jamal, yeah.
Like
Jamal's got this.
No, I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about like the persona. Jamal was always a nice guy. Lou, it wasn't really until the bubble thing with the chicken wings. Even when this guy had
when he had the two girlfriends, that was before that.
But it wasn't as widely talked about. The chicken wing thing at the strip club, everyone was like, oh, they lost their mind. But like, Lou was kind of nice guy. Jamal's a nice guy. Derrick Rose is an exceptionally nice guy, but also came from a really tough background, and the background spoke for him because Chicago embraced him so heavy. So I think he fits in closer to what we're talking about.
Beasley?
But
Michael
Beasley.
Basketball Michael Beasley. Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about stars,
not Malik.
Stars are a different category because Lance counts, but Lance was
born ready.
Not a star, but he is certainly that guy. I mean, if you're from Coney Island, you're that guy. You've got that. That's they're like the last three are 3 for 3.
We got to get Trey on here. I would love to learn more about the Stephon Marbury AND1 shoes. There's got to be more stories about that, right? Like AND1 as like a. When did AND1 peak? It was 2000. What? Like
whenever whenever the tour was on, whenever the tour was
tour,
on,
I want to say
ESPN.
I want to say the tour was 2003, 2004. I believe it's maybe 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2004 was Global Invasion. So that's at that point it's really taken off. 02, 03, around that time is when it starts. Yeah, 03 is when they go to LA, Chicago, Philadelphia, and New York. And then 04 is when they discover the Professor at an open run in Portland, Oregon. So
also, we have been messing up though. It Ja.
Oh, there he is.
Is he still in the league?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Ja's the answer for sure. Yeah. I'm glad you caught that. Our mentions would have been blown up.
You know what's funny? My kid. I'm trying to. My kid's birthday coming up. I said I'll buy you new shoes for basketball. My kid wants the John Morant's, and then the new ones have dropped, the 3s, right? And so I'm like, these are pricey. Let me look at the 2s and the 1s. Absolutely zero dip in price. There's holding steady. I asked Trey what the hell's going on. He's like, people love that shoe, man. And on the other hand, Anthony Edwards at Adidas, that's probably the most successful Adidas basketball sneaker in a very long time, probably since maybe even Tracy McGrady. And it's like, oh, like these are the guys that are holding the banners for I connect with the people. And it's not like some slick mass-produced product, even though it is.
I mean, it's like, yeah, if I ask my 10-year-old nephew, who are your favorite players? It's Ant, Ja, and LaMelo.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They love LaMelo too.
Tom, I wanted to go back to your, will this happen again? Was there a possibility for AND1 to have a cycle back in the culture? Part of it was that there was an existing streetball network that AND1 kind of elevated, and there were players out there that previously existed. It's not like you just said, the Professor was discovered. So I wonder if it won't be the same, but I wonder if there's some kind of like influencer version that could emerge. Like, I thought of all the people out there that do the videos. It's like dribbling like Chris Paul and shooting like Klay Thompson, and the copycats of Instagram, the dudes that are alone in the gym that are actually 5'8", but on Instagram Live they might be 6'5". You don't know. I wonder if there's some kind of unification of those people that could. It won't be the same culturally, but that could imitate what AND1 did in terms of providing a subculture of basketball.
Well, even the stuff where there's like a one-on-one game and there's a huge crowd around him on Instagram, and then like a guy crosses another guy over and makes the layup, and the whole they rush the court and everything. That always seems performative to me. Like, it doesn't feel organic. It just feels like they're doing it for Instagram. And much differently when I watch AND1 mixtapes, or I even see my buddies rewatching their Wire, and I'm watching some of the games with Prop Joe, and they're playing streetball, and I'm like, oh, remember that? Because it's juxtaposed against, like, I brought my nephew to a basketball camp this summer where the blacktop courts outside, they've been raised for a Chipotle, where it's like, you can't even, at UNC, at Chapel Hill, these courts, that Antoine Jameson and Vince Carter and Ed Cota and Mokhtar Jai used to play, like pickup ball outside in Chapel Hill. They got rid of those courts. And it's like, that's where all the magic happened, where all like the young kids would go play out and watch these guys and sit on the fence and watch them. And figuratively, but also literally, Ben, those courts don't exist like they used to. So how can you recreate that without like the literal basketball courts?
Yeah, I think that idea that will be led by the 17 ways to get shifty influencers might actually be the only viable path, where those guys become basketball versions of Speed, and they're celebrities in their own right. And I feel like that kind of happens. You'll see it's Hezi God going against this guy, and that one-on-one tournament energy is unique and pretty cool. I've been to a few of those events. It's kind of gnarly where everyone crowds around the one-on-one and they're playing kind of in a semi-cramped lane. It has some of that street ball energy. That's the closest approximation I've seen, at least in New York.
Yeah. But is it too divided because everybody's a brand and they all want it on their own channel? So why would they ever give the content to AND1 2.0, for example, for free, you know, or like even for a chunk? I
mean, you're just getting into the scourge of pickup ball self-tapers, man. I got a whole bunch of opinions on those guys.
Tom, you just inspired me to make a very sad discovery. When I went to college at Georgia Tech, right across the street from our dorms was a parking deck, and at the top of the parking deck, they had basketball courts, and we used to go and play pickup there. And sometimes I played against Mace on that pickup court before, right? And I'm pretty sure what would have been a very young Cameron that I didn't realize.
Is it a cocktail bar now, like a rooftop cocktail bar? Pop up?
Worst. Beach volleyball.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
That's either one step above or below pickleball. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. That would have been pretty tough.
I think it's below if you have to create the beach.
Fair.
Ben, we did this thing for Pablo Torre's show. You talked earlier about like guys are managing their money better, and we don't seem to have that as much in the NBA. And that's true, with the exception of Malik Beasley, who in this story was initially Amin and I were just going to go down this rabbit hole of like all of the debts that he had and, his family's from Hollywood. And then we came across Moose, who is this Twitter personality that was anonymous. And we were trying to figure out who this guy was and sleuthing all the different burner accounts. And we felt like Kobe Bryant and Vince Carter to your Jordan, because you did the ultimate Twitter sleuthing and investigative reporting NBA story, the best of all time. And so I wanted to hear it from you. It's been kind of burning inside me for a while. What did you think of our job? Like, you're kind of the GOAT. So what did you think? How did we do on the reporting of who Moose is and the kind of rabbit hole behind this Malik Beasley story?
I got the same feelings, that Amin did, going back and feeling the nostalgia for AND1 basketball. It took me down memory lane. I recognize a lot of the same emotions of discovery as you guys went through the process, and like the red herrings, the false leads, and then trying to track someone down and finally finding them. Like, wait, this puzzle piece, if you turn it this way, this might actually fit. And I was very appreciative of the job you did, and I very much enjoyed it. And it was well told as well. I thought the layout of the investigation was compelling and convincing.
Ben, the cool thing was, I think the most fun thing was when I was game planning with Tom, how to bait Moose out. Like, what do we do? What are the breadcrumbs we throw out there? And then going back and rereading your piece and realize you did, like, it was beautiful. It was like, there are 5 burner accounts. I'm only going to ask them about these 2 and see what happens to the other 3. And immediately to see that ripple, like that feeling of, oh shit, we got a bite. Like, I have to imagine it's like catching a big bass fish, right? You just feel that tug and you know, oh yeah, we got one here. At any point, did you, because me and Tom talked about this a lot. Like, man, are we making too many spurious connections here? Are we leaping to conclusions? At any point when you were doing it, did you feel like, man, maybe I'm stretching this? Or did you always kind of have the feeling that this is being validated by every discovery you make?
Well, I thought there was a lot of ambiguity about the story, and it was written in that way. Just for the record, like, I've never said those were Bryan Colangelo's accounts. The story doesn't say that they're his accounts. The story is that they are connected to him, and his wife is the one who said they were hers, or she's the one who's been blamed. I forget exactly how the league positioned it. And I've never disputed that in any way, shape, or form. Like, I'm satisfied by that. I read them all. Just sure.
Yeah.
Okay. As I said, so there was like a built-in ambiguity as of like, who are the authors of these tweets, the author or the authors or whoever, in doing the whole story. So there was no sense of certainty really overall, because all you could do is draw the connections, which also in a weird way made it easier, because like, all right, if we can't actually figure out this precise person and we don't want to accuse the wrong people, well, then we can just say these all point the same direction and we'll just list them off.
And then the Sixers confirmed that one of the accounts was Bryan Colangelo's burner account. And then the trick was that the other 3 accounts that you did not mention to the Sixers, they all shuttered within minutes, hours of you calling up the PR guy at the Sixers. Right. In the same way that Moose said he didn't know who one of the alleged co-conspirators were, even though we knew it was his cousin. And then the next part was when I sat there and I was like, oh, I should just check my DM, and maybe he did send me the Reddit post. And to find out that he had deleted his Twitter profile and his Facebook profile, that was in the same parallel way of, you must have, how did you find out that they shut down the accounts? Were you like refreshing constantly their accounts, or was it like?
I had created my own burner accounts to follow those.
Yeah.
So that I already had them all saved, all the posts that they had made. So then I saw them when they went private, and I could also see what connections they had deleted, after going private.
Oh, right. So some of them went private, some of them deleted, but you could see that they unfollowed some of the accounts that were connected to. Yeah,
but I'd already, screenshot and recorded all the initial connections they had anyway.
I'm going to read the handles back to you, the handles and the account names, and you tell me which one was your favorite. There is the one that was confirmed, so Bryan Colangelo had no name. It was Fila 1234567. There's an account, Eric Jr., handle AlVic40117560. There was
Eric Jr. He was strong. He was a good one. Mm-hmm. I believe Eric Jr. was the other long-lasting one, I believe.
There was Still Balling at S_Bonhams.
That's pretty good.
There was Honest Abe at Honest A34197118.
Honest Abe honestly did not have that great content from my recollection.
honestly didn't. Yeah.
And then my favorite, Enough Unknown Sources at Enough Unknown SO1.
Spell
Except
it for
it's
me.
Not unknown. It's uncount.
Oh, I'm sorry. Uncount sources. I'm sorry. Enough uncount sources.
Look, I got to be frank. I'm a still ballin' guy. I thought still ballin' had the best content out of the 5
A1
accounts.
Since day one, still ballin' guy. Yeah,
I'm a still ballin' day one. Yeah.
You know what question we always get, and it's so funny because I had the same thought when I was reading your story again. We always get the question. You didn't answer the question. Is Malik guilty? And it was like, I don't think that's the point of the story. In the same way, your story, when people are like, A, is it Bryan Colangelo? And B, is it, who is the source? And I'm like, I don't think Ben really, I mean, first of all, you didn't answer the question purposely.
The lawyers did.
Right. But I also think, Ben, your story is it's about more than that, than just like who's behind these accounts. It's more about the fact that someone is leaking this, that there is inside information, that there is proprietary information, personal information, potential HIPAA violations here, that I think is more interesting in terms of why is this a story than identifying who the source is or who Bryan Colangelo is. Did you find that people were like, yeah, that's a great story, but like you didn't answer the most important question, whether he did it or not? In the same way, Malik Beasley, I think our story, the purpose of the story wasn't necessarily to like prove one way or the other. And I felt the same way about your Colangelo story, is that I don't even think you needed to answer it at the end.
Well, I think, one, that's why I took pains to clarify that we did not actually say anyone specifically did it, because of the enormity of that story. Generally, people are just like, remember, this is whose burner accounts they were. I'm like, I never said that. Like, I'm just, but I think to me, that story was really about this interesting situation where you have information that's being leaked online, being funneled to members of the press and directly asking them to write negative stories about players on the team that is coming from somewhere that is connected to the general manager of the team. And that's just like, this could have happened without social media. You know, someone could send letters to members of the press back in the day, anonymous tipsters on the phone call. But it was a very modern story in that way. And yeah, every time there's a burner accused of, you know, somewhere on Twitter, someone's adding me like, is this a real one? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Because as you guys probably know, once you start working on it, it really does get under your brain, under your skin. And you're like, wait, who is this person? What is this thing? And it's a little rabbit warren of information that is all digital.
I love the idea of Ben being like the Ghostbusters. He's got like one of those like, yep, this one's a fake, guys. It's a burner.
I'm still trying to figure out because there's a Moose _ NBA account, then there's a FreeMoose _ NBA account, but a Mustafa, and there was a bunch of digits on it on the end of it that like I have not been able to decipher or decrypt what those numbers signify. Were you able to figure out, I know it's been like 8 years since you did the story. Is there any way you can understand what Honest Abe means or Eric Jr. means or any of those aliases? What the significance of those names are?
I think S _ Bonhams might be my favorite. Like that's an actual name.
I was like, well, they were balling to begin with, and then they remained balling, and they were still balling at the time of the account being created. I mean, I guess Honest Abe is just a Philly reference, you know?
That's what I thought. It kind of like the founding father type thing, but it's still a little off on that. Yeah.
It's even funnier when you realize that Mrs. Colangelo is Italian, straight from Italy. So you can see how she would like, Honest Abe isn't from Philly. Like, she's from Italy. Just go with it.
Yeah, there were some phrases in that, like, interlocutor is a phrase that Americans don't really use, and that was one that was used several times in those posts. And I remember talking with one of my friends from Italy, and she's like, "Yeah, we would use like interlocutor." Like, I'm like, right, that makes sense. That is used in Italian, but it's not used in English. And you're like, interesting.
Yeah, Bryan Colangelo's wife is from Italy. For those who are trying to connect the dots there. Another dots that are connected in that that I loved. I rewatched the segment you did with Le Batard in preparing for this interview today, and my favorite part is at the end when Stu Gatz goes, "So Ben, if it's not Colangelo, then what?" And you go, "I never said it was Colangelo." And the interview ends. I was like, yes. Stu Gatz was like, I thought he had you. And then it was just like, true. You actually never did say it was Colangelo. But the other thing here that I noticed, this was so long ago in the whole sports media landscape that you did a hit with Le Batard, and it was a phone interview.
Yeah. And
I was like taken aback by that, watching it. I was like, I don't remember seeing Ben's face during this, like, reporting the media blitz that you did around the story. And then I remembered, because that wasn't a thing back then in 2018. It wasn't a video podcast.
Thanks a lot, COVID.
Yeah. There was, I felt like they used like an image of the Philly fanatic when I did something on a show.
That
like,
sounds about right.
That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah. Did you... do you still get people asking you about that story besides us to here today, about the Colangelo story? And how often does that happen?
I feel like when I run into a Sixers fan, you know, eventually they start asking a couple questions. But every now and then, it's usually that we're just talking hoops. And someone's like, "Oh, you wrote for The Ringer." I'm like, yeah, The Ringer, those are my guys. You remember that story? Or, you know, then I think it was Sean Fennessy or whoever, when The Ringer did, like, here's our, list of our greatest stories. And they were, kind enough to put it at the top spot. And I was like, amazing. And then it comes up again and people start, DMing or following or retweeting it and stuff like that. So yeah, it has like a little odd cyclical basis that I think, kind of takes you back to that era.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you think comes back sooner, an AND1 revitalization or the prime of the burner account era?
I feel like the problem with bringing back the burner account era is guys kind of just say what they want now.
Yeah. Well, I think the KD experience, he decided he didn't have to do it anymore. He said, well, I'm just going to say what I want to say on my main account. And now he's the trailblazer in that department.
Yeah, that was the main thing. It was like guys are now able to speak pretty much freely. So what's the point?
The thing, Tom, you said, this is a different time, and you realize when Ben's face didn't show up on the interview. That's right. We didn't do that back then. My version of that was seeing the words Nerlens Noel. Like, oh, shit.
Forgot about that whole era.
Forgot all about that guy, man. Remember him?
Is he over 30?
Ooh, that's a good one.
All right.
Okafor.
Lock in your guess right now.
Okay, all right, hold on. Nerlens Noel was part of that trash draft class 2013, I want to say, because Embiid was 2014. So that would mean, and he was a one and done at Kentucky. So that would mean he was 19 in 2013, 32? Which would, wow. Yep, is 31, 32 years old. Yep.
I think your math checks out. I think he was like 31, 32.
Yeah.
Yep, 31. Damn,
would you want all those guys to be kind of like a revisit of that whole story? Is like get Nerlens, get Ja, get Embiid, because I feel like get them all like to talk about this era. Because I feel like when the Joel Embiid story came out this summer, and I reread your piece, I was like, wow.
They dropped a mention in there. They dropped him when Embiid was talking about all the shit he's been through, and he mentioned a GM with burner accounts. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Where's Markelle Fultz when you need him?
Oh.
Jaleel Okafor turns 30 this year.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
And Fultz is probably 28.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ben Simmons?
27.
28, 29?
Man.
Yeah, we forgot about the whole Ben Simmons versus Joel Embiid. Like that's why this article is. I mean, there's so many layers to this article. It is so fun to revisit because it's like the whole like kind of civil war between the factions of like Team Joel Embiid and Team Ben Simmons, and how that was very much a debate. Is like who's better, who's the anchor for this franchise going forward, and it just who was it? The turn of when the tone of Bryan Colangelo's alleged tweets or one of the burner account tweets, the tone around Markelle Fultz turning. They used to be pro Markelle Fultz, and then at some point, those burner accounts turned against Markelle Fultz. What was the turning point again? There was some funny, like
there was an anecdote about his trainer, and I forget the exact relationship. It was like a father figure / trainer. And the accusation from the burner accounts was that they were doing unorthodox exercises and had messed up his shooting form or hurt his shoulder. And it was blaming one of the people who was around him, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, that was Colangelo's big gamble was Markelle Fultz is trading up to go get that guy. And so I was like, man, this is, you're already talking the guy that you're pinning a lot of your legacy with the Sixers. And I guess Fultz was, what was it? Yeah, there was, whether it was a mental thing or a physical ailment that was causing his shooting form to collapse. But really is just a crazy, crazy time. But to me, it's the GOAT. It's the GOAT NBA story.
Oh, thank you. The saddest moment for me was I went and listened to Joel speak on Tyrese Maxey's podcast a couple of years ago. And Joe was there being like, Ben Simmons was the one that got away. And like that hurt my heart because I really believed in both of them. I thought that those two guys together with the right pieces could win a championship, maybe multiple championships. I really believed in that duo as two-way players with complementary skill sets as opposed to what most people thought. And hearing that Joe also believed that, like that one got me. I was like, oh, fuck.
What a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Ben back yet? Is Ben Simmons?
No, unsigned.
God. I was trying to think of this. Is there a comp for Ben Simmons, like historically?
I mean, look, I believe that he was a fantastic player. I will ride for Ben Simmons, but his back is not the same. I mean, he has not looked like the player he was in Philly since he left. My theory, if we're talking basketball Illuminati, is that he was traded as damaged goods from Philly to the Nets. I have no evidence that this is the case. It just, if you look at the timeline of him never playing that season, continually ramping up and then saying my back got hurt, I feel like that's sort of what happened. So from a Philly perspective, I get the fan base's wrath towards him, but he kind of saved your ass by concealing his injury and allowing you to get James Harden in return.
Hear that, Philly? Ben Simmons says you're welcome.
Yeah.
Hold on. I was going to say though. I mean, you're a Colangelo guy though.
Nah. I never worked with BC. I know him. I never worked with him. I know. Actually, my favorite Bryan Colangelo story from Philly was the summer they signed JJ Redick, and this was literally 2016. So Steph Curry just had the immaculate season or whatever, but they lost in the finals, and so they did the press conference at Summer League. So it's just like a handful of people like Keith Pompey and the local guys. And yeah, I remember Warren was like, hey, come on, we're doing the press conference. I'm like, all right, let me go and sit there. Sat there, and Bryan Colangelo's like, we're really excited to introduce JJ Redick. He's a great, he's going to be a great addition to our team. He's a great vet and a locker room guy, can help our young team. And for my money, the best shooter in the NBA. And so he says it, and I'm like, I mean, come on, dude, what are you talking about? But I'm like, hey, press conferences, people say shit, to hype their guy up. And then I accidentally made eye contact with JJ Redick, and JJ looked at me like, what the fuck is he talking about? It was me and Zach Harper, and we both lost our shit. We just had to look down, look at a program, look anywhere else, because the look JJ gave us was just literally, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Which is at his intro press conference. That's an insane thing. But yeah, me and Bryan never worked together. I got there right after he left. I worked with Jerry a lot more, but by then also Jerry was on his way out. So yeah, good times though.
What is it? It's a normal collar. Find a new slant.
Oh my God, Jesus! Those collars, man.
If you go on Twitter and put in "find a new slant," someone will have said it within the last 8 hours.
That's a great legacy, man. That's a great legacy. There was some other pieces of that story. Oh, you know what was awesome? Was seeing what tweets used to look like, because you did screenshots of these tweets from these accounts, and seeing what old Twitter looked like was also a great artifact. I just wanted to say that. It basically, if anyone wants to kind of take a time portal, Ben's got you, man. Like the Colangelo story, you can go revisit those times, and back in 2018, and also Bushwick, you can go and watch the peak AND1 mixtape tour, just the relics of that era. Ben, you've got us all covered. Thank you for reminding us of the good times.
I mean, that's what I'm here for, before the game became so soulless, back when we had burner accounts.
Yeah. But seriously, who was the source?
5 hours ago.
Seriously,
5 hours ago, someone responded to a tweet about the Hawkeyes offensive line. Albany is good. Find a new slant.
Love it.
It's incredible. They sold out damn near every game in that same heat. Find a new slant, loser. He's seen the whole world. He's traveled places we can only dream of. Find a new slant. This bit is so tired, man. The collar is the size we expected in May. Find a new slant. Wait a second. Where was this from? This is from September 1st, 2025? Oh. Yeah, trying to be funny. Yeah. Man, shit. I never knew.
Still there.
Mm-hmm. Still there. Still kicking.
Do we think Colangelo still wears collars shirts, or do we think that he's given in to that? It was like, hey, you know what? I am going to find a new slant here.
It was kind of like a mid-2000s thing, man. I don't know. Because Bryan,
it's about time for the collar resurgence, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, you know what? You know what?
Bring it back.
Cargo's back. Trucker hats are back. We need them collars. Got to go to his special guy in Italy, though. He had those all tailored, custom. Which always makes me think of him being there at the tailor and like giving him like the first proof and like, damn it, I want those collars larger. Yeah. Larger. And like, here, give me the tape measure. Like this. Like,
yeah, the thing that Network did on The Ringer, where they were doing the weekly roundup show. I'm forgetting the name of it, but
NBA Desktop.
They did.
Yeah,
NBA Desktop, exactly. They did a really good job capturing the humor of that moment and that phrase.
Yeah, the collar just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
He's a seed investor board member at the Bizio. I'm going to say the collars are still going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going strong. Ben, thanks so much for joining us on Illuminati. Please plug away whatever you're working on, so that everyone can get all your nostalgia theme pieces and otherwise.
Well, yeah, if you want a little dose of that sepia toned energy, as I said, my buddy and I, Andrew Crow, have a basketball podcast called Cookies Hoops. And, we sell some nice T-shirts and hats like this one. And, if you want to go down memory lane to 5 years ago, you can get The Joy of Basketball. We're available wherever you buy literature.
Yes. Back in 2020, those beautiful days.
Back when people read to their children.
That's right. That's right. Thanks again, Ben. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me.